Welcome, everybody, to the Dr. Leadership Lounge, where we have conversations with business leaders from all walks of life about how and why they are successful. Welcome, everybody. Hey, week one is in the books for launch of the podcast. I welcome those people that have joined the subscription services. We're calling this little endeavor the Leadership Lounge. And today I'm very pleased to have a longtime friend, somebody I've known for about 25 years now, maybe even a little longer than that. Kevin Johnson, who is the owner and president of Accurate Development, is joining us. Kevin, thanks for calling in and joining with us. How are you?
I'm just doing great.
Awesome. So what I'd like to do today is just talk a little bit about you and your journey and Accurate Development holistically, but maybe we start with tell people what Accurate Development is, does, and kind of just the background there to get started.
Sure. Well, we started 32 years ago now, and we started as a home builder.
Yep.
I started in Country Club. 2136 and 2140, 140th Street was the first two homes I built. So I still remember the houses because they were right next to each other. And
good for supervision.
Club, so, yeah. And I can actually remember a bunch of the houses. But so through there, we've branched to do a number of different things. Land development is probably something that is very important to me because I think people buy more than just a house today. They buy a community, they buy a lifestyle in our market, the Des Moines market, that really isn't available.
I would agree with you. Yeah.
Market, I should say. So it's something a little bit different than everybody else has done.
Yeah.
And then along with that, then we branched into doing a lot of commercial work. Commercial work is a really good fit for us because we see lots of different pieces of land through the years. There's bigger pieces of land that we buy that some of it lends itself to being commercial. That's not residential ground. It doesn't fit for that. So
right.
We kind of dovetailed into that, I would say maybe 15 to 18 years ago.
Okay.
And we run the company side by side. Each one is a standalone company, but we're in the same building. We have a complete group of people that run the commercial, and we have a complete set of people that run the residential and the land development. So, but they run hand in hand. So when you get a market that's up in the residential, we might pull some people over from commercial if we've got some downside, and vice versa as well. So the two work really well together.
So you're agile with them, with the staffing. That's a great thing. How many staff do you have now?
Well, we have, I can't tell you the exact figure, but I would say it's less than 100. If I had to put an exact figure on it, I would say 75 to 85, but it's somewhere in there. And that ranges all the way from punch out guys on the houses that do finish up work to job superintendents to cost estimators to accountants to plan designers. So there's a bunch of different facets within that. I don't have 85 superintendents. It's spread over a bunch of different things.
Well, and just for the audiences, in all transparency, Kevin has built 3 homes for me in the last 25 years. So when, I kind of pride myself on quality and how I lead in my business career and what I've done as a coach. And Kevin and I would say, Kevin might say he was trying to get me out of the office in a hurry, but I think we hit it off the first time we met. Again, that was in 1999, believe it or not, Kevin. That was almost 24 years ago. So I've seen it really grow and develop too. Now, you also have, I believe, a large landscaping component that kind of came about when the market got soft back in the 08-09 collapse. Tell me a little bit about that.
We do. Bentley Ridge Tree Farm. We started in 2009. And it started on a piece of ground out on Alice's Road, of which we've since moved it. It's up on Highway 44 now, just west of Grimes.
Right.
But we started basically in 2009. The home building market had shut off. It quit. There was no business. There was nothing to do. I had a piece of land, and I had some very good people that I'd like to keep.
Yep.
Just because my thought was when things get better, they go back to building houses. Well, it turned out that they were good at growing trees. So we started growing trees, and we've got it's as much as anything, it's a garden center today. So we've got a big greenhouse that's going in this year. We'll have flowers, annuals, the trees we grow there on site, and it's 120 acres, and we'll have about 50,000 trees when it's fully up and operational. But each year we get, a number of new trees that go in, and we're doing a pot and pot system. I should say a bag and a pot system,
What's
where
that?
there's a plastic pot in the ground, and we grow the tree in a bag, set the bag in the pot, and then when somebody comes and buys it, or we put it up at retail, we just go pull the tree out of the pot and put it up at retail. So
Easy to move, easy for success rates on plantings, all that type of. You don't shock the trees like
exactly.
some other systems do, I suppose.
Yep, we're not cutting the roots off the trees.
Right.
All of the roots that tree has is in that bag. So it's a great system. We have 100% root. We're capturing 100% of the roots. We're like a balled and burlap tree. Typically, it depends on the size of the tree, but rule of thumb is you cut off 80 to 90% of the roots. That's why a tree's in shock for the first 2 or 3 years, is you cut all the roots off of it.
Right.
So our system, you don't cut any of the roots off, which is a really neat deal.
That's great. Now, I think Brenda, your wife, and you also have your kids involved in the business. How have you kind of divided and conquered on that? Tell the folks how you've done that inside a family business. I come from a family business, so I know there's a lot of other attributes that you got to consider when you're running a family business or a family involved business. So how's that work for you?
Well, it's worked out really slick. Jared naturally just took a liking to the commercial side of it.
And that's your son.
My son, Jared. He spent a lot of time with my father, whose also name is Jared, and they were around the commercial construction as he was growing up. So he's kind of gravitated to the commercial, and my daughter has gravitated towards the residential, it couldn't be any better for
No
me
kidding.
because she can she can be the head of the residential side. He can be the head of the commercial side. They each have their own thing. They're not overlapping. They're not stepping on each other's toes. So it couldn't work out better. And it was kind of their calling on both of them. So
That's great.
they do a great job at it. And that's kind of how it's just kind of worked out.
And then Brenda's the boss of everybody, right?
Yeah. So she thinks. I think the kids are the boss anymore. So.
Oh, isn't that the truth? I've got some
Yeah.
some 25 and 22-year older as well. So yours are a little bit older than that, but it is funny. They're always interested in what they have to tell us. So that's great. What would you describe? When you look back, so you're 30 years in the business. I mean, I built homes down the Carolinas when I lived down there, a few. And I've built some with you. I've been involved in 11 home building projects in my life for myself and for sale. But when you went through, I mean, that was the worst time in '08, but there's been other ups and downs. Now we're kind of sliding in with these interest rates going to where they haven't been for quite some time. How do you think you differentiated yourself? Was there a philosophy or cornerstones of your business that allowed you to succeed through those trying times? Because let's face it, '08 to '11, that was uncharted waters for the entire economy.
I would say that the two biggest things, one is advice from my dad. And the advice from him always was, make sure you have a rainy day fund.
Yeah.
Because the longer it stays good, the longer it's going to stay bad, which I did. I had a huge rainy day fund, which turned into a very, very small rainy day fund.
Yeah, 3 years is a long time, or 4 years, whatever it was.
Yes, that is a long time. But it was he gave me the advice. He was never a home builder, but he had seen home building since he was been in business too. He's been self-employed in the commercial industry, but he's watched home building for, long before I was doing it. And he said, builders always get in trouble because they don't have enough cash reserve. He says, make sure you have enough cash. That was probably number one, because we had a lot of houses.
You told me
when it
this
did
number.
crash.
This is, I almost fell over when you and I just in passing conversation. How many houses did you have up when the proverbial, hit the fan?
So when it stopped, it was either 58 or 59 houses
Holy
in some
cow.
form of construction. Now that wasn't all the way done. There were
Right.
some that were all the way done,
Right.
some that were in sheetrock stage, some that were in foundation stage. So we basically slowed everything up, and then I always say in our business you have to manage profit because you have to be profitable or you won't be in business.
That's
But
correct.
second of all, that's just as important, you have to be able to manage your cash. The two don't have anything to do with one another, but you got to do both of them. So that would be number one that I would say how we got through it. The second thing, pretty much, I would say over 50% of my business through those years, call those 3 or 4 years, over 50% of the homes that we sold were previous customers that wanted another house. So I always said, do a good job because that customer will come back to you when they want another house. If you don't do a good job, they don't come back. So
Look at me. I mean, I'm
yeah,
the perfect example. You know, I had been gone 16, just for the audience's edification. I'd been gone for, 18 years because I was in Chicago for a couple first. They know the story. And I came up here. We decided to move back to Des Moines from the Carolinas. People go, you got to be crazy moving back to Des Moines. And you and I both know Des Moines is a very well kept secret. Shh, to all the people that consider us flyover country. It's absolutely outstanding. But I looked around, couldn't find anything, and I had been doing some online work, just seeing what was going on. And I, of course, looked you up, and you had this new development opening up, and we came and looked at it. And the quality still out, stands above and beyond. You do it differently. The lots are great, and the finish and the building experience. I think that for all of you out there, Kevin's one of the nicest people I've ever met. His word is his bond. If something isn't right, he makes it right. There's very, very few situations where it's not right. But I don't know how many people touch one of your houses, Kevin, but it's probably measured in the hundreds by different vendors and subs and everything. To manage all that is great. And I also came back and saw it was the same people building from 20 years ago. How do you keep the people around? What's your secret sauce for employee satisfaction?
well, and we use a lot of our own employees. Plus, we use a lot of subcontractors, and the subcontractors we like to keep around as well. Basically, if I would say we try to keep things as positive as possible. Every now and then, there's something that comes up. So instead of, blowing it off, letting it go, whatever the case is, we
Right.
will actually sit down, have a conversation with them, say, I think you're the greatest, or you wouldn't be here anyway. But here's some things that we really need to do different than what this last house or two houses or whatever it was. And and pretty much everybody responds. Every now and then you get somebody that'll turn over for, you know, just because life changes.
Right.
So we're in a spot right now where a lot of the people I've got, a lot of the tradesmen, so brick, roof, framing, a lot of those guys have been with me for 25 years. A lot of them are getting to retirement age. You know,
You got to refill the coffers with
yeah,
human resource.
that and to me that's going to be the biggest challenge of not only our group but the building industry in general. I don't see the real tradesmen that have uh, bricklayers. Go try to find a 25-year-old bricklayer that has to work as an apprentice, come up through, learn the trade, and do it. There is
Hmm.
no such thing.
Hmm.
That guy is not there today. So that's something that our entire industry is going to have to overcome, and we will. I mean, there'll be a way to do it, but
Well, you always look at the dirty jobs guy, right?
yeah,
From Fox. What's his? I'm drawing a blank on his name.
Mike Rope.
Mike Rowe. Thank you. He's calling out all the time just how. I was a history major. I don't know if you knew that about me or not, but so I look at trends over time. And coming out of World War II, it was about building the country, right? So the trades were huge. Unions became large. The trades were very important because they needed to build houses for all these people coming back and all the children they were having in schools and everything. And then it became this: if you don't have a college education, you can't be successful. And really, really misleading, because look at what spiraled out of control, the debt and how much is being charged, et cetera. We can go on and on around that stuff for quite some time. But the trades need to come back because we've seen it in the global economy. just think about the supply chain issues that I know have affected you. But that's got to get turned back on. So I hope you guys do figure it out, because America's stronger when you got all those trades working here.
Well, one thing that I do not think gets said enough from anybody in our industry, a guy who will physically do the work, the guys who've been around. Now, this isn't a guy starting. You have to go through the ranks. You have to start at the bottom. You have to figure out what you're doing.
Just like everybody else, though. It's no different in corporate America.
Skilled trades.
Yep.
I don't think there's a skilled trade that makes less than 100,000 in our that works for me, I should say. I can't say that for everybody. But the skilled trades, which would be the bricklayers, the roofers, the framers, the guys that are there that have been around for some time, they're all making over 100,000 a year.
Making a great living at a low cost of living in the Midwest. Right.
And they can start when they're 18, and they can, I would say from going from the bottom to the top, I would say takes 10 years.
Yep.
So by a 28-year-old today, if they have their ducks in a row and they're doing what they should be doing, every one of them can make $100,000 a year.
And I mean, it's just it's these well-kept secrets. I didn't know what I was trying to say there. That the trades, my dad, my family's history on the commercial refrigeration side of the world, full of tradesmen. My dad ran the back of the business, the refrigeration, teamsters, pipe fitters, carpentry, and sheet metal. And those guys all killed it, and gals, And my wife, her, she's in the insurance business, and she calls on trades and high vet companies, air conditioning, heating, bridge builders and things like that, fuel transportation. These people that have built these businesses start off with, one transportation company, let's use an example, comes off, finally gets his own fuel truck, then goes to 2 fuel trucks, and then gets to 10 fuel trucks. Next thing you know, these people are worth millions and millions of dollars. And they didn't have a college education. They were just hardworking, had, like you said, so politely, have their stuff in a row,
Yeah.
That's great.
In the trades working for people, there is, I didn't even start with electricians, plumbers, flooring guys. There's all kinds there's money to be had there, and there's a worker shortage. What they have to understand, though, is somebody starting out, in 4 months, you're not making 100,000.
That's right.
I mean, you have to put in your time. And that's where I started, quite honestly. My dad, every summer, he would put me with a different trade. And one year I can remember I'm putting with a bricklayer, and I can't remember his name now. This is 40 years ago. But at the end of the year, he says, "No, what'd you learn this year?" I says, "I learned I don't want to be a bricklayer. That is hard work. There's a lot of the stuff out here I can do, but bricklaying," and this is before, they had mixers.
You had to hand shovel, spade that water in. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And things are a lot different today with the machinery that they have.
Tools.
The work is a lot easier today than it was 40 years ago. I mean, you moved everything by hand. You didn't have forklifts. You didn't have telehandlers. You didn't have the big mixers. You didn't have, but every trade is like that. Every trade is tried to streamline to where they're not so hard on a guy's body that you're just mush at the end.
Yeah, you're shot at 45, right?
Yeah. The bricklayer I have today is 78 years old. Well,
and
he was
does
doing
awesome
it when
work.
It was hard.
Yeah.
And he was doing it when it was hard. And he says, this is hard work. He says, but it's a lot easier today. And he's 78. This is a lot easier today than when I was 40. So there is a great guy. I mean, just the salt of the earth guy. That's just a great guy. Those guys are hard to replace. Now, there is a guy today that's 20 years old that will be him. I just don't know him yet.
Gotcha. You got to meet him. You got to get out and find him.
Yeah, there will be guys, because those guys they can make a great living.
Yep, and control of their time, the quality of life, work when you want, work when you need to, right? It's somewhat seasonal.
It's somewhat seasonal, but
exterior work.
Exterior work is. I always said the greatest job if you take the whole realm of building houses, the greatest job is a trim carpenter. He's always inside. He's in the heat. He's in the air conditioning. It's clean work. You're never in mud, and they make really good money. Trim carpenters can make a really good living, which is good for them.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it's a skilled trade that takes longer to learn than a lot of them.
Well, I used to always say trim carpenters and tape and mud guys. Tape and mud guys can take a really poor drywall hanging job and make it look beautiful, or a really well hung drywall job can look terrible if the tape and mudder is, say, me, you know. And
Yeah.
same thing with trim carpentry. You can be off, on plumb a little bit, and a trim carpenter will make it look like $1,000,000 in a heartbeat. It's unbelievable skill. It's an artisan's type approach. I mean, they are artists with those tools. There's no doubt. How would you? And thanks for all that on the trades. I think it's something that society needs to kind of realign with this made in America type thing, bringing manufacturing back, those types of jobs, the trades, et cetera, is the way kind of out of this thing. But how would you describe your leadership style? The podcast is around leadership. These conversations are around anything we want it to be, but I always do want to give people some nuggets. How do you think you've been a successful leader? Because you didn't build all the houses yourself. You didn't build the tree farm yourself. You didn't build the commercial business up yourself. You had to get people to follow you, and we call it fellowship. What are the differences that Kevin brings versus other people to keep people around and build a great culture?
Well, I would say that is a great question, and in each facet of things that we do, I would say it's different. But I think there is maybe not necessarily leadership. I think you have to be able to tell what a guy's skills are, and then let him use his skills. So I'll give you an example. There's somebody that works in my office, and she said, this is after the fact. So 5 years after that she's working there, she said, the job interview you gave me was the oddest interview I've ever had in my life. She said, and she said to me, she said, when I sat down, you said, tell me about yourself. And I thought that was the oddest question. And she says, why did you do that? And I says, well, you're an accountant. You're going to push numbers around. I wanted to know what I thought my capabilities of you are, not how am I going to train you to be an accountant? Because I'm not an accountant, so I can't train an accountant. I can't train, for example, the tree farm. I didn't train the guy who runs the tree farm. I didn't train him. I took a guy that I knew had he had abilities, and I knew he would do whatever it took to make it successful. And I put him in that spot, and I let him do it.
So you empowered him. You empowered him.
I empowered him. I don't micromanage people. If I have somebody that's in the wrong spot and I have to move him, we'll do that. But I want to figure out about the person that's coming on board. And if I think the person's capable, I think that's more than, I always say I'm not a trainer, because everybody I have that works at our company there,
Yeah.
everybody that's in their spot is better at what they do than I would be. So how would I train them? I can't train them.
Yeah.
I put the best person I can do, and I put them in that spot, and I want them to do it. And that's to me, that's the key of growing a company. It's people. Like, for example, 50,000 trees. Do you know of those 50,000 trees? Do you know how many I've put in the ground?
Exactly
zero.
Well done.
The
City
guys
supervisor first. I forgot to tell everybody that Kevin was a city supervisor.
Yeah. But what I did know is I took some guys that when we started out there, they didn't know anything about trees. But what I did know is I knew he had work ethic. I knew he was a great family person. I knew that whatever I gave him, if I gave him the resources to do it, I figured he could do anything. And that's how it's worked out.
That's awesome. There's a couple things just to add a couple comments on that. So my weekly job, this is my weekender is what we're doing today here. But corporate America, we use I use some analogies. So you talked about getting to know him. So, and you knew he'd do, or she would do, whatever it took. And we call those can do and will do, right? Can they do it? You're searching for other skills there. Can they, hers do math great. His is, dig, pick up things, care for. And then the will do is the uncovering, right? Because everybody says they'll will do. There's another saying, everybody's raring to go, but not many can go for raring. And what that means is they all talk a good game, right? In the interview, you got to kind of pull it out of them to make sure, ask supplemental questions a few times to make sure they aren't just blowing the proverbial smoke at you. And then the last piece of that can do, will do, we call team fit. And that's to make sure they fit in your environment. And then get them, now they're on the bus, now you find the right seat on the bus. You do have to move some people at times, but it's funny how the industries that are very different still have the same challenges, and to be successful, utilize the same kind of approaches on certain things. You got to get the right people in the right jobs.
So along with that, and I would agree exactly with what you said. So a couple of interviews through the years, probably more than a couple, I missed it. I put a guy on a spot. And what I do is I spend a lot of time overseeing that guy for a couple weeks.
Yep.
Saying, is this good hire, bad hire? Well, if it's not, I can tell you within 2 weeks if it's going to work or not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Yank the Band-Aid off. Put him in a different spot. Did I miss the interview? Did he not tell me the truth in the interview? At that point, it really doesn't matter. Is there a fit somewhere in the group? Or if there isn't, tell that guy, hey, this is not what we thought it was. So that doesn't come up a lot, but
Right.
I would say in 30 years it's come up 10 times that you just hire and you hire the wrong person.
That's right.
But if you're there, you can figure it out in a couple weeks and make the change.
So a funny story. I try to add a little humor in at times, and you're a very funny guy too. You've got some unbelievable. We both have unbelievable, not suitable for work stories, but I've made some bad hires too, and I'll actually carry, person's been on the team for maybe it's 3-6 months. You got to give some time for territory to develop and some of those things happen, but you can tell it's just not working out. They have put on their resume number one at this and number one at that and highest achiever in this, highest achiever in that. And I've literally walked out with the resume and stopped, say, hey, you got a minute? And come into the office and just say, when are you going to start doing this stuff on the resume?
Yeah.
And it is the episode, I think it's episode 5 on the actual podcast. I talk about, as a leader, make tough decisions quickly. If it's not right, move them into another role that is right or has potential to at least be right, or move them on, because you don't want that to weep into your team. Your team's looking at you too. If you put up, at least in my opinion, if you put up with lackluster behaviors from somebody else, that precedent can start to weep into the rest of the team. And I would assume you wouldn't like that either.
I always have the saying, you will get the work that you will accept.
That's right.
So if that's what you'll accept, that's what you're going to get from everybody.
Exactly right. Exactly right. That's great. What do you think? So kind of talking about people selection and handling some tough times. What would your current self as a business leader and what you've grown it into now, what would you tell your younger self if you had a chance to, hey, watch out for this or don't do that, or what would that be if you looked back and said, boy, I wish I would have had my older self now tell me that 25 years ago?
I would say 2 things. And actually, I did both of them, so I feel pretty good about it. Maybe it's just I don't know what I don't know. But the 2 things that I would say were the biggest. Sacrifice young.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're young, so I started building houses when I was 23. I sacrificed with hours, taking money out of the company. You sacrifice when you're young. First of all, when you're young, you don't know any better. So you can put the time in and the effort in. Don't spend that money. I always tell everybody, in this true story. So I started when I was 23, and like any business, you don't make a lot at first, but then it started to get, make money. So when we'd make money, it all went back in. I lived on my wife's salary. My wife had a job at Principal Financial Group downtown. That is what we lived on. So I didn't take any money out of the company until, I'd say 10 years into it. After 10 years, I started taking a little bit, but it was a very little bit. So, which also dovetails into make sure you have enough capital. That rainy day fund that I was talking about that my dad
Mm-hmm.
preached over and over and over again. That is what built my rainy day fund. Make sure you have enough capital to spread the risk. Our business is very risky. We've offset it with doing some things that to offset the risk, but building spec houses, go to the bank in a down market and tell them you want to put in 10 spec houses. They'll think you're nuts because it's the riskiest business ever. If there's not a buyer for that house when it's done, you're going to go broke, on and on and on.
And
Well,
it's millions of dollars risk. It's not how you're
it's
doing it.
millions of
Yeah, yeah.
dollars.
It's not 10
And
houses. You've got large construction sites going on all over the middle of the state here. So it's big boy risk for sure.
so we spread as much of our risk as we can by keeping each one of the companies with plenty of cash in it. But that came from not spending any money. Even today, I'm not spending. I don't spend what I make, and that's another thing that I think the young guys coming in. If you want to be a business owner and own your own business, figure out a plan where that business you don't have to take a nickel out of it for 10 years. After 10 years, you'll have a little nest egg there, and then you can spend some money.
That's right. And
But
I think that's a big key for society today. You got Gen Zs now coming out of school and getting into the workforce, and electronics and parenting has changed, and everything's at our fingertips. And it's kind of, I hate to say it, but an entitled society these days, and they think it's easy, and it just isn't. When you look at when I look at you now with 35 years of business experience as well, I know that blood, sweat, and tears is how you got there. It wasn't luck. It wasn't you fell into it, right? You outlasted the others. You build a better product. You build a better team, and you're conservative. And I think that's the key for all our young people. I try to do that with my daughters. Is some people say save 10% of your money, and when you're young, it's tough when you're a single breadwinner in the house, right? You aren't married and you don't have a partnership that you're working on, significant other, whatever. But don't save 10%, save 25% if you can, as much as you can, because early helps. And same in our business environment. When I first started, my kids were very young, but that was, 12-hour days. Then, not when life gets a little easier. You talk about your dad, a couple stories. My dad used to say, and this was not so much tongue in cheek, but as a business owner, we only expect you to work half days. You pick which half, 7 to 7 or 8 to 8, and that's what it takes.
my dad always had the story. They always said, it's a 40-hour work week. And my dad says that's when your work week starts. He says that's what everybody else is doing. He says you make money from 40 to 80.
That's right. I used to say, I remember my first part-time job too. you know,
Yeah.
God, I was working, and you probably have a similar story. My first job, my dad owned the company, and he would remind me often, his name was on the front door, not mine. But when I was 10 years old, I got to go clean the union shop toilets on Saturdays for $2.50 an hour. And
Character builder.
let me tell you, you said you didn't want to be a bricklayer. I knew I didn't want to be a plumber if that had anything to do with that, because you have no idea how much, well, you do. But for the audience out there, 60 union guys in a week, how much damage can be done to 3 bathrooms? It's unbelievable. So I knew right away. And he always did that to me, the worst ticket on the docket for the day, right? Mow the ditch. If I came in complaining about it, he'd tell me to lower it and mow it again. It's just, we were raised a little differently. I'm not saying that's all the right thing, but hard work. Your father sounds very similar to mine, which is just
Hard work. Yeah.
which is just great. If you were to look at how leading has changed, and again, being an owner of a company over the last 25 or 30 years, is there anything that really jumps out at you that surprises you, or what it takes to do business today versus what it did back then, or is there anything that stands out to you on that?
I think not. That's a difficult question to answer because I'm 30 years older too. So 30 years ago, I was telling a guy who was 20 years older than me what to do. Now I'm telling a guy 20 years younger than me what to do. So that's kind of a hard one to say from my
Yep.
standpoint.
Yep.
business in general has changed dramatically. Um, when I got started building houses, it was fairly easy to get started. The first two houses I sold, were 140,000. They were in Country Club, and the lots were 26,000, I think,
Mm-hmm.
28,000, right in that price range. Now our spec houses, ranch spec houses, start in the eights, 800,000. Store and a half start in the 900,000 range, and the lots are 100,000. Well, it's a lot harder to start today than it was back when I
Just
started.
the requirement of cash and
Um,
capital. Yeah.
yeah, so it's harder to start today, and the people starting. So when I started building houses, I had saved and saved and saved. Before I was building houses, I was doing some repo houses and fixing them up and flipping them and anything I could do to make money. Well, basically every nickel to my name was $40,000. Well, I'd look at $40,000 as it equated to $140,000. I had $20,000 per house up
Mm-hmm.
front.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you look at what is it today, sevenfold.
Yeah, so
The
six,
houses,
17%. You used to carry 17% of the load on the front. You had that. That's what the bank
yeah,
needed you to have, right?
that's what you needed to have. So if you needed, say, 20% to make the numbers easy, you have to have 180,000 each house. So starting out building houses is much harder than when I started.
Right.
Uh, it just is. I wish it wasn't, but that's what it is. I like to see young guys coming up, starting new businesses, coming up through, and there again, you're back to that, have enough equity and capital in the company
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard for somebody 23 today to have 300 400,000 sitting in the bank, and that's about what you need to get started today. So it's just harder, and
Gotcha.
I think that's everything in general. Everything's gone to bigger companies. uh, the home building market was fragmented where a small guy could get in and start. Today you've got the big mega builders. You've got D.R. Horton in town. Um, you've got,
Yeah,
and they
Pulte
suck at it.
nationally, right? Exactly. They,
Yeah.
yeah.
Summit Homes. That's another company that's here that's a Berkshire Hathaway company. So you have a few nationals coming in, which I think is terrible for what our market is. But I mean, you're not going to stop them from coming in. They have the ability to go wherever they want. That's what
Why do you
America
think
is.
it's terrible? What is that makes you think that?
Well, I think it's terrible that those big out of state companies come in, and there's been a lot of them that have come and gone. So
Yep.
they have nothing invested in
I
the
gotcha.
community.
I see what you're
So
saying.
I'm here. I want X, Y, and Z to happen because I live here too,
Right.
and I want everything around me to be nicer. I don't want to build, a whole bunch of houses, and I shouldn't lump everybody in that category because uh, I I focus that towards is
The
the
mega.
national,
Yeah.
the mega nationals. D.R. Horton built 60,000 houses across the country. That is not good for Des Moines. I like to see local people doing our work. Um,
You like to
and
tend for
there's
the
a point.
village. You like the village to be successful, right?
Yeah,
Right.
there is. People ask me a lot. I know you don't build over here, but who would you suggest? And I says, well, there's a whole bunch of home builders in this town that are phenomenal home builders. You'll have a great experience with them. It's not. I don't like to bash any competitors because everybody in our market has a niche. So you've got, um, and you can run right through them, but you've got 30 guys in town that do a great job.
Yep.
Um, that I would tell,
Anybody to
and
use.
yeah, I do. I'd tell anybody to use them, and you'll have a great experience. I don't think you get that with a D.R. Horton because those 30 guys that I would tell you, they live in this town, and you're going to see them at dinner. You're going to see them at the grocery store. You're going to see them here, there. They're not going to stiff you on a deal.
Hey, their
Where if you go
reputation's all they got. That's right. That's right.
yeah, and D.R. Horton, if things don't work out, they pull up stakes and they can be gone in 6 months.
Yep.
There's two nationals, and I can't think of their name right now, but they came into town. They put a bunch of stuff in the ground, got it up, sold it, all kinds of troubles. They were not from here. They did a bunch of oddball things, but literally in 2 months they're gone. never to be heard from again. Now somebody's got to go fix their problem.
Right.
Their streetscapes of what they put in look terrible. Um, and that's the things you don't get with local guys.
Right.
That's what if anything about our market that I do not like, it's nationals coming in.
Got it. Well, and you build beautiful neighborhoods, right? I mean, streets aren't dead straight, curves, park areas, lots of woods. The tree farm, what I noticed out here is, and the other areas that you've built in, is you go in and make every lot a treed lot in 10 years because you plant an entire landscape across the back of the lot before the house even starts in. Every house has 10, 12 trees that are good trees, not scrubbies. And it's going to be a nice buffer backyard in a few years for everybody, which I think is a really, really nice attribute too.
Yeah, and that's a part of doing the whole community where you can do things that make sense if you control all the lots that you couldn't do if you had 2 or 3 lots.
That's right.
So that's why I like to do the whole community. I mean, we put a nice entry feature in there. We've got some great trees in there. In the environment of living in Acadia, that's the one we're working on today. The environment of living in Acadia, you're going to feel different than buying a lot in Waukee or any other place that has 50 different builders in.
Right.
It's a different it's a whole different feel for what you're living in.
Well, you ensure that you got quality all the way around you, right? And not against anything at different price ranges. It's not that, but the quality maintains the same. People can charge anything for good or bad quality, and there's
Sure.
a cost of something, then there's a value of something. How much has the business taken off on the commercial side? Has that really exploded a lot more? Has that grown faster than the home building side? Tell us about the commercial side for a minute.
I wouldn't say that it's grown any faster than the residential. We've been doing it a long time now. There is some differences in it in that a lot of it's third-party work, but we can also do bid work, which what I call bid work is city work because cities need stuff. We just got a job a couple weeks ago in Pleasant Hill doing park structures. So there's different facets of the commercial that can spread your risk more than what it is on just building spec homes. It's a complete different business. It seems it's all construction. It should be the same thing. Complete different mindset. It's a different group of subs.
Yep.
It's the city processes is different. It takes a lot more money to get in, and that's why I didn't get in it. When I first started, I could get started in the housing. I had $40,000. That wouldn't even get you started in the commercial. So that's kind of how I gravitated to commercial. You would build stuff and own it and lease it or sell it. That's where I came up through, but I didn't have enough money to do it. So even from that point of where it started till today, I mean, we're doing, I don't know, it's probably, I always hate to throw out numbers because they're so misleading. Well, I looked at the docket yesterday and we had 28 jobs under construction, which is more than houses that we have going, put it that way.
Yep.
And almost every job is bigger than a house. So the commercial business is, it is a good business.
Are you taking that commercial business and making it into lease property for your own company, or are you build to suit? What do you see on that side?
All of the above. So
Okay.
we have a project right now. We have 2 projects that we're building in the process of building right now that we're building and keeping. One of them is Jordan Creek Point, which is right in front of Shields at the mall. So EP True Parkway between Shields and EP True. We're putting in space there that we will own and maintain. Heritage Trail up in Ankeny. It's the end of Prairie Trail, clear out on the South Ankeny Boulevard side. We're putting space in there. We'll build that, own it, and maintain it. We have, I don't know, we have a fair amount of property now where our offices are on University.
Yep. All those are your buildings, I know.
Yeah, it starts at down at Jethro's and I want to say the Breakfast Place, but it's
Early Bird.
Early Bird. That's what I was looking for. So we've got from there on up to where we are. We also do some buildings that we build and will sell, and it just kind of depends on where they fit within our company. So if we have some ground that we've traded into and our cost basis is low, we know we're going to build and maintain that, because if you sell it, the taxes you pay on it are just
Going to eat
enormous.
up. Yeah.
They're going to eat it up. So that's the stuff that will keep a lot of that stuff. But we do have, and I don't know if it'll start this fall or not. We've got a 12,000 foot building that we're putting in on University Avenue, just west of our offices a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
We sold a piece of ground to Starbucks, so it's right next to Starbucks, right next to car wash. So it's got good traffic. University. It's actually in Waukee. We'll build that one and probably sell it.
Gotcha.
If the market isn't such that it makes sense to sell it now, we'll hold it for a while and then sell it. But eventually that piece of property will be sold.
Gotcha. Back to some of the leadership components, what do you think your biggest strength is running the company? I mean, I know that's a broad topic, right? And thinking about and talking about yourself can be uncomfortable sometimes, but I want you to be comfortable with it. What do you think makes Kevin so followable? That's a terrible word, but you got all these loyal employees. You build great products. You've been around forever. Success continues to come to you. Are there a couple key components that you kind of point to that has allowed that to happen? Your approach to your team or your culture?
I would say probably number one is don't step on their work. I always say I'm not a micromanager. That I think to me is, you will get people that will, I always say they'll cross burning glass if you let them do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll do what you want, but you can't second guess them. So if it ends up that one ends up a problem, which does happen from time to time, you just bring them back and say, here's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see whatever the case is. I'd like to see change orders done a little bit different than we are, because there's a little confusion between you and the homeowner. And here's what I see. This is what I'd like you to do. They'll all do it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take your lead if you don't. I always say, I don't rule with an iron fist.
Right.
If you present it that, because everybody there means to do good. If I have anybody that's on my staff that doesn't mean to do good, they'll be gone instantly.
Won't be on your staff. That's right.
They
That's
won't
right.
be on my staff. So I always start with the premise: everybody there wants to do what I want them to do. It's always a premise I start with. If I find that different, the whole conversation's different.
That's right. That's right.
That doesn't happen very often.
So it's funny. I coined a phrase, and this is 20 years ago, and I call it carefrontation. And I talk about this in one of the podcasts actually on accountability. You praise in public, you punish in private. And punish is a hard word, but to make the 4 Ps work for my analogy and my conversation. And like you said, you pull them aside and you say, I'd like to see this change or whatever. Some people don't like confrontation as leaders, whatever they do, be it leading a business like you do, leading a large sales organization, service organization like I do. They think, I'm not comfortable with confrontation. If you change your mindset on it and say, I care for this individual, I want them to be as successful as possible, and my premise is they care too, it's a carefrontation conversation. You need to change this up a little bit. You need to fix this. Let's not do this the next time. I'm okay with your decision, but here's maybe why we wouldn't do it that way next time. And then they'll go through the wall for you again, and they'll remember the lesson. If you berate that iron fist approach, right? And I've been around 32 years in corporate America. I've seen them all, right? The screamers, the yellers, the quiet types, the passive aggressives, the don't call me, don't bother me, they're just trying to collect the check type people, all of it. But human nature down to the core, like you're saying, I'm agreeing with you here, is they want to be pleasers. They want to do it well. They don't get up in the morning and go, what can I screw up today? They want to be helpful.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think that, you asked me this question earlier, and how it's different today.
Yeah.
My dad, he came up through an era where it was yellers and screamers. That was his era. But that isn't how you get things done today. If you yell and scream at everybody today, everybody's going to walk out the door and say, screw this guy. This isn't what I signed up for.
It's
if you
fun.
go back, and this is before our era,
Mhm.
uh, but I see it with him and the people that are around that are his age. That's how you did it back then.
It's funny. I went to a seminar, and I'm actually having him on here in a few weeks. Um, a gentleman that owns a company called the Persimmon Group, and um, he does a presentation. It's called Zero Dark 30, and it's leadership, and it was done over at MBI actually. They had him in, but he talks about how leadership used to be like that, and it was how everybody came out of the war, right? That's how all the factories got. So it was command and control. That's all they knew. They knew there was a hierarchy, there was a chain of command, and you did whatever they said. And I was used to getting yelled at because I had to go over the hill and, to take France or whatever the situation was. And now it has changed. And in the late 90s, you needed to be more about surrounding yourself with good people, understanding that you aren't the best at everything. You got to find people and empower them to be better than you ever could hope to be. And that's how great leaders get things done today. And it's funny that you bring that up about your dad. I listened to it Tuesday by a gentleman specifically about that. And he pointed to it's because of World War II. That's when all that generation or they were kids of that generation. That's how they were reared and raised.
Interesting analogy. I'd never put that together with that, but that is exactly the way. In my dad's, mid 70s, that is the era
Yep.
that were yellers and screamers. That's just what it was.
Yep. Who was your biggest influence or peer or what would you call it, role model? Who was that in your life? You said a lot about your dad. I'm sure that was very important. But
Oh, yeah, he would be number one by a long ways,
yep.
without a doubt. I spent a lot of time with him. My son has spent a lot of time with him, and I would say him definitely. There's been other people through the years that you pick up here or there, but really, from my dad started working with me when I was 5 years old. I can remember. Oh, this is 38th and University in Des Moines. This is how long ago this was, Drake area now.
Yep.
So this would have been 45 years ago.
It's
We
right where
were
the old
there.
movie theater was. There was a movie, Sierra. No, that wasn't Sierra. There was an old movie theater over there right at 39th and
That,
University.
yeah, that was just a little bit west of this.
Yep.
So we were there, and my brother and I were there. I think we might have been 10 years old, but anyway, we were very young. We started there and started on the top floor as an apartment building he was building. And then he showed us how to clean an apartment building, 10-year-old kid. Well, that is one thing that the younger generation is missing out on, because you can't have a 10-year-old kid on a job today.
Yeah.
But he started me when I was very young, gave me the skills to go through that. And he did the same with my son. So he would definitely be the number one role model.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What do you think, if you were to give advice to new leaders of any type here? We're kind of coming up on our time. I want to be respectful of your time, but what would be the advice you would give to people that want to, start their own business, be a leader in that realm? You've worked with a lot of white collar people too, inside architectural and city and permitting and all of that type of thing. But what kind of advice would you give to leaders, just from an overarching view? What would that be?
Well, that's obviously difficult, because every
Everything's
instance
different.
Yeah. is different. I think I always approach every meeting, and a lot of guys are the exact opposite as this. I approach every meeting. I'm not the smartest in the room. Everybody's going to follow me, no matter whether it's the young guy who's just starting out, or, obviously him, you have to give more direction than I sit in a room full of 5 or 6 architects. You treat those guys different, but I don't enter any meeting saying, everybody's going to do it my way. You have to go with the flow a little bit. You're hiring on just say the white collar portion. You're hiring guys that are smart people. That's their specialty.
Yep.
So I always say, like an attorney, for example, an attorney writes contracts for me all the time, or an accountant. I always say, I hired you to do this job because I know you're better at it than me. I want you to do it. So I'm going to take your advice.
Yep. Yep, you hire that
So a guy,
expertise, and attorneys and accountants are two key ones in anybody's
yeah,
life.
yeah.
A
I'm
good
using,
banker, a good
I'm
accountant,
spending
and a good attorney.
exactly. I'm spending the money for your expertise. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. A young guy coming up that is, and I don't do this anymore just because the other guys do it, but I used to when a guy would come in and I would show him how to clean a house. Well, there's a right way and a wrong way to clean a house. Seems like an odd thing, but there's a way to get through a house a lot faster, and it's a lot cleaner than if you do it the other way. So, that you kind of take the reins and say, here's what I want you to do, and then let him do it. And then if it's 9 times out of 10, they don't get it on the first go around.
That's right.
Not a big deal. Just bring them up. The younger they are, the more, like mentoring, that's a young guy. He's showing up, our young guys today, the guys that start sweeping houses out are $18 an hour. That's not a bad starting wage for a guy that has no education, no work ability,
Experience, right?
no experience. I mean, he's at the bottom. He's just starting. That's where they start is 18. Then they go up from there.
That's $40,000
So
a
then,
year job.
yeah. And more than that, if they want to work overtime, we always let our guys work overtime. So if a guy wants to make, that guy making $18 an hour, he can make mid to upper 40s as an 18-year-old.
Yep.
Now, that seems just crazy to me, but that is what a guy can do if he wants to work. Now, if a guy wants to show up 3 days a week and doesn't want to work Saturday, he's not going to make that much.
Well, he's
But
not going to make it on the team for long term either. I mean,
no,
anything that is worth a lot when you look at it has a lot of foundational sweat equity involved in it. These things just don't happen, and that doesn't matter what kind of business it is. It's people that come in and look at the on my teams, the top sales executive or the top director, and they think, oh, I could do that. I wish I had that job. Well, just put in your 15 years. Keep your head down, do all the things right that you can, control what you can control, be open to learn, etc. Like you said, no one person has all the right answers, and you can be there. You made mention that you go into any meetings. I can remember growing up in the business world, and you'd walk into the meeting room and you'd look for the older lady or older man sitting there, and you assume they were the ones to pay attention to because they've been around the longest. Now I walk into a meeting and I look around and I go, oh, hell, it's me. The oldest guy in the room. So I better not screw this up, right? Now I'm responsible for a mentorship here for the next hour and a half. Doggone it. I don't like all this accountability stuff. But, in the last podcast, I talked about engaging the quiet ones in a meeting. Get feedback from everybody because different perspectives, there's knowledge hidden underneath. Some personalities are very strong in a meeting and they take all the air of the meeting. And the quiet people are being more introspective, and they may have a great answer. So sometimes you got to lean in and pull it out of them. But that's funny. That is funny. What else would you like to say about Accurate holistically? We're bouncing up on the hour here. I want to give you time to kind of finish out. First of all, greatly appreciate the time, Kevin, to spend some time with us. I think you have some great insights on leadership and how to be a savvy, investing in yourself, and know that it's going to take some time, some great stories. I know you wanted to point out some other people too, but I'll just give you a couple minutes to kind of close up on anything you think's important to the conversation or something you wanted to make sure you got across in the conversation.
Sure. Well, and I'm in the construction industry, and this basically goes, I think, across anything you want to apply it to. But I always say one of the greatest things about my job is I love doing it. Every day I love doing it. I can't wait to get out of bed in the morning because I know it's going to be a great day. If you don't like what you're doing, it wouldn't matter how much money you made. If you don't like what you're doing, go find something that you love to do. Because if you love to do it, it's a whole lot easier.
It's not work. Yeah.
Business,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the construction business is a deal that really I'm working 7 days a week. If I'm not on the job, in the office, that's what I'm thinking about. But it's not a job to me because I love doing it.
You love it.
But
yeah.
You could apply that to any business that there is. So to me, that's the biggest thing. Love what you do. And there's a lot of businesses that if you put the time and effort into, you can make a great living. if the things that you don't like to do, and there are some things I don't like to do, but basically the things I don't like to do, I hire somebody
You
to do 'em.
delegate it.
I delegate it and work through it, and it might be something they like doing. So, I mean that's but that can be done through any facet of what you do. But all in all, I've done it long enough that I'm not on the twilight of my career. My kids tell me I'm on the twilight of my career, but I'm actually not.
Get out
on
of here,
the
Dad.
twilight of my
We
career.
got this.
But I could stop tomorrow
Yep.
and be happy with what I did. I built over 1,000 houses.
Wow.
I can take you by I can show you every house I built. And so I was earlier today, I was at a party, and there was a lady there that says, "You built a house for my daughter." She mentioned her name, and I says, "I know right where the house is. It's on the corner of Olson and Oakleaf in Waukee, and it was 25 years ago." And she said, "That's exactly right." So I remember all of it because I enjoyed every bit of it.
Well, and you're great at building relationships. You've never worked. At least I consider you a friend, right? I mean, even this last time, I want to touch on the story because I think it's funny, or just interesting. But I've always said I have a face and a voice for radio, and I hadn't talked to you in 20 years. And I called you, and I left you a message because we had looked at your model here and wanted to talk to you about building another house. And you finished the comment. What was that?
Said you had a face for radio.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And it said I didn't even have to hear your name. I recognized your
No.
voice.
I knew your voice, the first word out of your mouth.
Isn't that
I
funny?
knew who it was.
But it goes back, and the reason I bring that story up isn't to talk about my voice, but you've always been heavy on the relationship side, right? You really take these projects to your heart, and you're going to deliver the best possible product. And if something's not right, you make it right. I've never had anything more than, hey, that looks a little off. Can we do something about it? But anytime I've had a question, you pick up the phone yourself. And I think that's key too. You're 100% accountability to every one of your staff and every one of your clients. And I think that's just huge.
Well, one that I do like to tell everybody that I like to point out, because very few people will do this. I put my cell phone number on my business card. So if I wasn't confident in what I was doing, I would have 5 layers of people you got to go to talk to me. My cell number's on my business card, so anybody can talk to me that we're doing work with. So
that's awesome.
I'm glad to do it.
That's awesome.
That's part of the deal.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, hey, I appreciate any last things you want to touch on or comments, or I think the content's been awesome, but I want to make sure you get everything that you wanted to cover out. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on?
Not that I can think of. Appreciate the call, and we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, everybody, hey, Kevin Johnson, president and owner of Accurate Development, a commercial, residential, tree farms. They're all over the place. Leasing land, developing land. Just a great man and a great company. If you're here in the local mid-Iowa market, please check them out. And without any further ado, we'll let you go, Kevin. Thanks for everything, and much appreciated.
Thank you.